Good morning. Today we're here to discuss an issue and start the process of something that is extremely critical. And today I stand here before you. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a police officer, not a criminal defense attorney, not a prosecutor, don't work in corrections. But the simple reality is that this whole issue with respect to the criminal justice system affects everyone. And several months ago, there was this discussion, and kind of tell you why I got engaged at the level that I'm engaged now. In Councilman Heenan's district, there was an issue with respect to a prison. And the concern was about building a new prison for the House of Corrections and whether or not it should be built in a location. Some people thought maybe it shouldn't be built at all. And throughout the conversation, one thing I thought is that I need to go up to the site and look at it. And so I went to the House of Corrections one day, and I was, frankly speaking, to say dismayed is an understatement. It was a really, really bad situation. And looking at the conditions in that more than 100-year-old facility. And then I think the thing that most concerned me is that when I found out after talking to the individuals that work there and the warden and some of the individuals who are actually housed there, that almost, Councilman, 3/4 of the people there had not even been convicted of a crime, and significant number have not even had any opportunity to go through the court system, but yet they found themselves in this particular facility. So that was extremely troubling. So as I talked to a number of people, particularly Councilman Jones, who's the chair of the Public Safety Committee, his issue with respect to some of the things that have been done, we found that there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work. These individuals up here all bring levels of expertise and experience in this issue. But what I found is that there was a whole lot of talking going on, and it was like no real direction in terms of us implementing all these wonderful strategies. So as usual in the City Council of Philadelphia, we have this sense of urgency, as I'm sure most people do, but we have, fortunately, a platform and a venue that allows us to get all this great information out to the public, the general public, and to put in place a blueprint and a template for us actually moving forward in these strategies in a very aggressive way. So I stand here today prepared to start the process of moving towards a very, very significant issue, and one that is extremely critical. In talking to a number of people, we found that we should approach this in an extremely comprehensive way, and you'll see as we've moved forward on this select committee that we will be diligent, we will be inclusive. This particular phase will actually not be the final phase as it relates to the formulation of the committee, but we had to start because it's time for us to move ahead. And I want to thank everybody who has participated early on in this process. So right now I'd like to turn it over to the first of the three co-chairs. Councilman Jones will be co-chair, Ms. Bradford, and my good friend, Deputy Commissioner Bethel. So right now I'd like to turn this over to Councilman Jones, the chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This body is forming a special committee to take a look at the continuum from arrest to release in the criminal justice system. We are concerned, and we have been concerned in the past when a building collapsed on 22nd and Market. President Clarke took the initiative to form a special commission to look at demolition in the city of Philadelphia. It resulted in 75 recommendations. Many of them, before the ink was dry on the report, were being implemented because they were value added to the whole process. And some of them are in the process of, to this day, being formulated and making our city safer. Similarly, this is a system that cannot be ignored. It represents approximately 25% of the city of Philadelphia's budget. So what we quickly found in conversations as we formulated this committee, from your most conservative law enforcement type There was fiscal issues that could be addressed through this. That one figure that is bannered about is $34,000 per inmate, or $137 a day to incarcerate, is something that a conservative, even Donald Trump, would want to take a look at and figure out how we reduce that liability to taxpayers. But if you are of the mind that restorative justice is the model we should pursue, if it's less incarceration, as President Obama has suggested nationwide, then you can too embrace this process, because, as the President said, many people are held on State Road without being convicted of anything. So now, I don't want to give the impression, and I hope my co-chairs will agree, that there are a lot of good people who have made a lot of good effort that have come before us. People from CJAB, criminal justice, professionals at PCCD have made contributions in this way. But what we have found in best practices is when people remove the silos and start collaborating together, it is amazing what ordinary people can accomplish and do extraordinary things. So that's our hope. We want to do, the mayor has talked about moving to a zero-based budgeting process. Well, this is an appropriate time to see how much things cost, how much time things take. A good example of how you do that is Pittsburgh. Right down the road on 81, they went through this process some years ago, and once they removed the barriers, the silos of this is my lane, they began to see where things could be improved, both in cost effectiveness and ultimately in the reduction of the census within their jails. So we hope to do that. We do not think this is an easy process. No one up here, to my knowledge, is getting compensated for this. As the President alluded to, we are not finished with picking people to be a part of this collaboration. We want to get someone from victims' rights to be involved in this. And we have reached out to that constituency and are awaiting a response, because once again, we're not paying for this. This is a voluntary effort which will consume a lot of time from the people here. And then also the Hispanic community is another group that we are reaching out to, because they unfortunately are a great part of that census up on State Road as well. So we hope to be industrious. We hope to be open-minded. Some of us come with some preconceived notions because of the experiences that you see represented up here, but with a spirit of cooperation and collaboration, I think you'll see us move the needle in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilman Jones. I just want to say I'm really honored to be a part of this committee. Being a co-chair with some of these extraordinary people, especially Mr. Kevin Bethel, who is no longer Deputy Bethel, but yeah, he's in civilian clothes now. We've worked together on a number of criminal justice issues, and we've made some really great policy, so I'm looking forward to that. I think this is a step in the right direction to being smart on crime, and every criminal justice system should want to understand how their policy impacts the lives of those who come through our system, but also the communities in which they belong. I think when we look at policies, we should struggle or strive to understand, when are we making people more desperate? Are our policies hurting more people than protecting the safety of the individuals in the community? And when we can get to that part, I think we can develop practice models that go towards that common goal. We want to make sure we balance the public need for public safety, but also make sure that people who come through these systems get the opportunity to have a second chance and to be lifelong productive citizens. So I'm looking forward to working on those issues. And I know, like Councilman Jones said, it's not going to be an easy task, but I've dedicated my career to doing this at a practice level and, of course, at the policy level. And I look forward to working with these fine people. Thank you.
First and foremost, let me qualify. I don't want to get charged in impersonating a police officer anymore, but I have subsequently retired, and I'm now the Stoneleaf Fellow assigned to Drexel in a juvenile reform lab where I'm working around a lot of juvenile work. But first and foremost, I want to thank City Council, Councilman Jones and Kenyatta and President Council for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this process. I born and raised in the city of Philadelphia for 52 years, and I think I know it very well, and so it's a blessing to be standing here today to be a part of this process and be able to participate in this process and bring the perspective from law enforcement. I mean, we've talked about that. Me and Commissioner Ross often had conversations about what is procedural justice and where the other stakeholders and reform has to happen. But it does not happen in a silo, as the Councilman just referenced. It happens in a collaborative effort. You know, the work we're doing around our juveniles and diversion is 8 collaborating partners who are working together to create a system that's working and having a phenomenal effect on our school district and the school-to-prison pipeline. And I think that template can go very far in working together to advance those things that need to be done. You know, anyone who does not recognize that reform is necessary in policing is missing the boat. You know, procedural justice is not just about policing. You know, the pressure on policing has been long and far, and many times these other system partners have not been a part of that pressure. But one of the things that procedural justice makes fairness across the entire system. And until you have fairness across the entire system, you will not have significant change. So I think we have a great opportunity to move forward in making those changes in a collective effort, again, protecting the rights of victims, that they are part of this process. And so I just applaud the City Council for taking this time to really get focused and really work hard, sit down, let's roll our sleeves up, and get to work and see if we really can make some demonstrative differences in the way we manage our system as it is today. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, once a commissioner, always a commissioner. That's what they tell me. I'm just saying. We also have, as members of the committee, and I want to thank them for agreeing to spend time on this very, very critical issue in this format. They've already done a lot of work as it relates to that. Next up, we'll have Councilman Johnson. We will have my good friend, Mr. Tariq El-Shabazz, who is a former DA and now a criminal defense attorney. So he brings dual expertise to the role. And Ms. Schwartzman will be speaking, and then we'll conclude with questions.
Thank you, Council President. I want to first and foremost thank you for the appointment and providing me the opportunity to participate on this committee. And I want to also acknowledge Councilman Curtis Jones, who was the leading foremost council person as it relates to the issue of criminal justice reform. And I remember he took members of city council and our staff members to New York to look at different models as it relates to criminal justice reform here in the city of Philadelphia. You know, just about every 3 months, either my staff or I travel up to Greater Fort Prison. We work with the lifers under a program called FACT. It's called Fathers and Children Together, figuring out ways to create a partnership between fathers who are doing a life sentence and their children here in the city of Philadelphia. It's initiatives like this that will allow us to address the revolving door of recidivism. And so I'm truly honored and privileged to have this opportunity to participate in this committee. More than 70% of individuals who are serving time in our state prisons on the state level are those who are arrested for mental health and or drug offenses. So that's the majority of individuals who are serving time are nonviolent offenders. It's committees like this will allow us to work in partnership on a state level, but most importantly, starting here doing the groundwork in the city, opportunities for us to reform our system, but most importantly, find alternatives to just housing individuals, but finding ways to help people rebuild their lives and become productive members of society. And so I'm just honored and privileged to be a part of the committee, but most importantly, when we put together these committees, a lot of times you have people who want to be a part of it because they think it's a level of prestige or they get to put it on their resume. But I could truly, honestly say that the individuals who are part of this committee, and these are people I've worked with in the vineyard, rather it's been formerly Deputy Commissioner Kevin Bethel, who worked in the 17th Police District in South Philadelphia, where he was a new captain. I was a staff member for Senator Anthony Hardy Williams, and we worked consistently on the ground on addressing the issue of youth gun violence in South Philadelphia, and just to show how much his heart and passion was in addressing the issue, he stepped up and adopted a young man and became his mentor in the neighborhood so that young man wouldn't go on to a life of crime and violence. And also working with Ms. Schwartzman when I was a former state rep in Harrisburg, worked very closely with the Prison Society. I was actually the first person to introduce House Bill 1999, which would allow juveniles who were serving a life sentence the opportunity to come up for parole, and her organization was on the forefront and supportive of our efforts. And who doesn't know Mr. Tariq El-Shabazz, former district attorney, but most importantly, an advocate for human rights, stepping up to the plate, challenging the system to make sure that just because a person is arrested, they still deserve a fair trial. They still deserve justice. And I look forward to working for Ms. Keir Bradford, Chief of the Philadelphia Defenders Association, and your reputation definitely precedes you. And so I like the fact that Councilman Clarke, as he always does, he did his due diligence in putting together a very thoughtful and pragmatic group of individuals who's passionate about the issue. So thank you very much, and look forward to getting to work.
Good morning. First, I want to thank Council President Darrell Clarke, along with Council, for even coming up with the vision to put this type of program together. There is a young man who was in Harrisburg. I believe it's your mentee, Jordan Harris. Jordan Harris began his political career at the age of 7.5 or 8. He was a member of a program that I was engaged in called Say Yes to Health. It was developed by the late Dr. Walter Lomax. At that time, at 7 years old, or 7.5 years old, Jordan trying to get his own way. I don't know what kind of way you can get together at 7 or 7.5, but this young man used to get in front of, 30 children and some other adults and talk about his aspirations. Those aspirations, based upon guidance and based upon involvement, led to him now being at the State House. And I think that speaks to what we're going to try to do. Since it's African History Month, let's talk about African history. One of the greatest sayings in the African American community is that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, let's change it a little bit and talk about taking a village to raise a community. One of the most important things we need to do is address the youth so that we don't have a juvenile problem. And if we don't have a juvenile problem, we won't have an adult problem. And if we don't have an adult problem, we won't have a community problem. All of these things work hand in hand. So it is with great pleasure, pride, and humility that I accept an opportunity to work together with so many great minds and with individuals that are engaged in not numbers in a political poll, but in making the city of Philadelphia a progressive and positive place. We're going to try to work hard. We're going to try to come up with solutions. We're probably going to be in the back room arguing a little bit. I'm going to be sure about that, and disagreeing. But in that disagreeing, just like a diamond is a lump of coal, but it's the pressure that's put on the diamond that makes it one of the most precious gems that we have. We hope to come up with some solutions that will bring recidivism down, that will in fact encourage hope in our youth so that they begin to put down guns and put down being pharmaceutical salesmen without first going to college, and begin to do things that will be beneficial to us. These are the individuals that will be running these cities, folks. So I applaud it. I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do it, and we pray that in our battle, we'll come out with some things that will be progressive. Why you keep looking at us? I just figured I was going to battle you.
Please.
I too want to thank Council President and members of Council and all the people that will be involved in the Commission for this effort. The Prison Society was established 228 years ago by Ben Franklin and all of the active colonialists of the day. We have been looking at incarceration and prisons, and what we are finding is there are too many people in prison, the cost is too great, and there are too many people impacted by the system. It's time we really take a look at what's happening, make changes that are smart, to look at people as whole human beings, and to look at humanity and justice, which is what the Prison Society is all about. This is a wonderful effort. It's going to take collaboration. It's going to take a lot of sweat and equity, but I think everybody here is ready to roll up their sleeves and jump in. We just saw success on strengthening the ban the box measure, and we can build on that. There are a number of initiatives that we can work on to make Philadelphia the true leader in criminal justice that we were back in 1787. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. It is going to be a very, very interesting process. These select committees always do their work, and there will be a timeline. And they will, what we believe to be, not only issue a great report at the end of the day, it will start the process of the implementation of all of the wonderful ideas that have been put in place over the years. it's time to get moving, folks. I mean, the sense of urgency from a community perspective, from a holistic perspective with respect to the individual's lives, from a budgetary perspective, because we can't continue to think that spending $35,000 a year on an individual to stay in prison is the way to go. That makes like no sense. Last week, we had a press conference downstairs where, based on a $500,000 budget, we were able to put 25 men to work, working on land care and providing them educational opportunities to ultimately become entrepreneurs and business people. You know, you got to be proactive with this. You can't just keep locking people up. My good friend, former Commissioner Johnson, used to say you can't arrest your way out of the problem. He is absolutely right. So I want to thank all of you so much. This is going to be very interesting, and I think it's going to be extremely productive. Real quick, as Councilman Jones referenced the additional individuals or categories that will be on here, the mayor will shortly be naming the head of the mayor's criminal justice, also known as CJAB. That member will also be a member of this committee. We'll have a representative from the 1st Judicial District Court and a representative from the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office that will be a part of this process. But I think most importantly, we will have individuals who have been both perpetrators and both victims of crime, because you have to have that as a part of the conversation as we move forward. So again, I want to thank all of the members here so much, and I want to thank all of you, and we will conclude. Are there any questions? Yes.
I heard a lot of talk about a need to sort of take the work that a lot of separate types of groups are doing and kind of bring it together.
Yeah.
Can you make some specific examples of areas where, you know, the process really needs to be better?
Let Councilman Jones, he's the expert on that.
No, I'm open-minded to learn. So the MacArthur Foundation worked with the last administration and is continuing that work with the Kenney Administration to take a hard look at how we can improve upon a justice system. And we are not, we are building upon that work. They produced a document that we just kind of took a look at. It had a process chart from the point of arrest to the potential point of release that had hundreds of steps on it, hundreds of possibilities. Each one of those steps cost something. Each one of those steps could be enhanced if we put the appropriate resources behind it. So if someone is incarcerated because they haven't gotten a risk assessment in a timely fashion, well, that's low-hanging fruit. If former President Judge, now Justice Dougherty, talked about and testified in these chambers that 100 more GPS monitors could have reduced that census population. So we're going to stand on the shoulders of giants, CJAB and others, that have been looking at this issue. What we hope to do with collaboration, but also with the power of appropriation, try to make it better. PCCD, we might want to come up and talk about the work that the state is doing, and Governor Wolf appointed several of us to that commission.
Yeah, but PCCD has always been, an ally in looking at some of our criminal justice issues and our Smart on Crime initiatives, and I think that they will definitely be a likely partner. But I just want to elaborate on our MacArthur efforts. We just submitted a proposal to reduce our prison population by 34%. It's a very aggressive goal, but when I sit in there with all of our stakeholders, I think we come up with some very practical approaches which make it very likely that this is something that we're looking at as for long-term sustainability. I do echo President Clarke's sentiments that we have to engage the community in this. We cannot do it as stakeholders alone. We have to understand real information from them about what would make their community stronger and where are the gaps that contribute to some of their people coming into the system.
Thank you. Yes.
Also speak a little bit to how you see this process differing from what's currently happening with the MacArthur Foundation process?
The most important aspect of what we're going to do here is the level of transparency. Everybody comes to city council. I mean, if I ask anybody in this room, maybe two people can tell you where CJAB meets. Can you? Anybody? No. So we want to use this platform in this format, which is a very, very extremely public venue, to have the level of conversation. CJAB is a structure that was put together in the government, but in all due respect to the members of CJAB, I don't really see coming out of that particular organization a process that talks about how you put those 25 individuals to work based on that press conference that we had with PHS yesterday. I see my friend Ted in the back talking about the PAL, all right? We're going to up in Strawberry Mansion community, we're putting a roof on a gym up at the LP Hill School, which is connected to Strawberry Mansion. Strawberry Mansion High School was designated as one of the most dangerous schools in the country, as documented by Diane Sawyer in a 60 Minutes document on TV, right? So we're stepping in now, and the city is putting money in to ensure that there are after-school programs, and the PAL organization is going to be running programs out of there. That's not discussed in CJAB or the MacArthur. It is in the MacArthur Foundation. So what we have to do is be extremely creative. I want to really focus on the front side of this challenge. As I said, there should be at some point a day when we have, frankly speaking, vacancy signs on the doors of every prison, right? Right? Because people are no longer going to prison. So those are the kind of things that we got to have. And this gives us an opportunity to have a very, very public discussion. And ultimately, council has been known to be an entity that will use this bully pulpit to get things moving. Some people even call me a bully every now and then. But the reality is the sense of urgency to move this forward, is right before us. And, we had a lot of discussion. We had a lot of good work. It's time for the implementation phase.
Sure. One other connect the dots. Again, I can't overemphasize appropriations. You can point at a thing, but until you're committed to help pay for that thing, what does it mean? There are startling statistics that we hear about during the budget process every year. There's a direct correlation between literacy at the time of 4th grade in reading that a social engineer can predict the number of cells to build by the time an individual is 18. Well, if you know that, if you know better, you should do better. We should invest in early childhood education. So we have the ability, and President Clarke is, and along with the mayor, have been talking about community schools and things like that. So CJAB can't directly impact what the SRC prioritizes by way of public safety and then also prevention of criminal activities going forward. We can.
That's it? Any other question? Folks, again, I'm sorry. Well, one thing I've learned as a council president, you establish a process and you put somebody else in charge, then you walk away. So the three co-chairs, along with the committee, I guess within the next week or so, will actually lay out. Tomorrow? One of the co-chairs said tomorrow. The simple reality is we anticipate we'll replicate the process that was done with the special committee for demolition. And we had a time, I think we did five hearings? We did five hearings during the course of the summer and issued a report of more than 40 recommendations, and I think more than half of those recommendations have actually already been adopted. So we would anticipate that this group will have the necessary public discussions, probably some out in the actual neighborhood as opposed to this being in city council. And at the end of the conclusion of that level of process, there will be a report, and we will hope to move forward on the implementation of a whole lot of great ideas. And hopefully we'll get some additional ideas and other partners as it relates to dealing with criminal justice reform in a serious way. It was referenced earlier. This is one thing that Republicans and Democrats in Washington actually agree on. All right, so if they can agree on that, then this is something that we need to get done. Thank you. Any other question? Thank you. Thank you all very much for your patience. Thank you. Dealing with criminal justice reform in a serious way. It was referenced earlier. This is one in Washington.